We live in interesting times for the headlines. President Donald Trump faces the most perilous challenge of his 3 years in office as public hearings convene as part of the impeachment inquiry into the U.S. president open under the glare of television cameras. Pro-democracy protesters step up a Blossom Everywhere campaign of roadblocks and vandalism across Hong Kong. Venetians wake up to scenes of devastation after an exceptional high tide washed through the historic Italian city, beaching gondolas, trashing hotels and shops, and sending tourists fleeing through rapidly rising waters. And the Iglesia de Cristo continues its Aid to Humanity events, this time in Bahrain and in Florida. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. Our first story takes us to Washington, D.C., where public hearings begin on Wednesday in the House of Representatives impeachment inquiry. It's investigation concerning U.S. President Donald Trump. Did the president abuse his power, as many Democrats say he did, by attempting to pressure a foreign power to publicly commit to investigate his political rivals? Now, that was the charge of an anonymous CIA whistleblower whose complaint about the president's dealings with Ukraine prompted Speaker Nancy Pelosi to begin the impeachment inquiry.
Today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. I'm directing our 6 committees to proceed with their investigations under that umbrella of impeachment inquiry. The president must be held accountable. No one is above the law.
On Wednesday, the House Intelligence Committee takes the impeachment investigation public after 6 weeks of closed-door depositions from White House, State Department, and other officials. Now, those depositions have already painted a fairly complete picture of how President Trump and aides, including personal lawyer Rudy Giuliani, pressured Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky to open investigations that could conceivably find political dirt against the Democrats and Trump's possible 2020 election rival, Joe Biden.
It's a great pleasure.
We have a president who's violated his oath of office, a president who has put at risk our national security, a president who may, and that will be the decision of the Congress to make, may have committed a crime, and a president who used the power of his office and your tax dollars to try to persuade a foreign leader to once again interfere in a presidential campaign.
No collusion, no obstruction.
Witnesses who already testified privately will be recalled to face the public panel, starting with Ambassador William Taylor, Washington's top diplomat in Ukraine, and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State George Kent on Wednesday, and former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, on Friday. The aim is to further compile the evidence against the president or for Republicans in his support. Democrats chose all the witnesses for the initial private depositions phase. In the open hearings, both parties can propose and subpoena witnesses, although Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff will be able to prevent Republicans from inviting witnesses who have no relation to the core allegations or who simply seek to stall the proceedings. Now, this can happen with or without a vote to authorize an impeachment inquiry. In any event, what comes next is lawmakers from both parties listening to witnesses, reading documents, and reviewing evidence to see if the president might have engaged in treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, such as using office for personal gain or abusing power. If they think he has, then those committees can push for a full vote of the House on articles of impeachment. A simple majority can't impeach the president. Now, does this mean he's guilty? Not necessarily. Does it mean he would be removed from office. Not necessarily. Again, all this really does is formally charge the president and move the process over to the Senate, where the Senate must hold a trial according to the Constitution. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, which sit up front presiding while House impeachment managers would present the charges against the president and the president's lawyers would dispute them. Witnesses can be called, questions can be raised, senators serve as jurors in all of this. Many pitfalls could come up to short-circuit the process, but so far, Republican leadership has suggested any trial would be allowed to run its course. At the end, each senator must deliver their verdict. If two-thirds say guilty, then the president is convicted and would be removed from office, something that, despite 3 serious pushes towards impeachment, has never before happened. What happens when a presidential impeachment inquiry runs into a presidential election year? The United States is uncharted territory. The Iowa caucus, the first vote that will be cast for president in 2020, is just 3 months away, and President Trump is running for re-election. Unlike the last 2 presidents who faced impeachment, Richard Nixon and Bill Clinton, who were both in their second terms, never before has the U.S. had a president who was in a position to be re-elected after impeachment, let alone convicted and removed from office should that happen. But even in the hypothetical worst-case scenario, President Trump could still be re-elected. Now, impeachment is a rarely used tool to oust a sitting U.S. president from power. The start of open hearings in the impeachment investigation into President Trump, as said earlier on Wednesday, will give the American public their first chance to witness live this explosive showdown between Democrats and Republicans over the U.S. leader's future. Here's the process.
Impeachment is a rarely used tool to oust a sitting US president from power. The two-step process begins if lawmakers consider a president is guilty of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors according to the US Constitution. The initial vote takes place in the House of Representatives, and a simple majority is needed. In the event of impeachment, the case then moves to the Senate for an impeachment trial. A 2/3 majority is needed for conviction in the 100-member chamber. If that happens, the president is automatically removed from office with no possibility for appeal. Although no US president has ever been ousted from office under impeachment proceedings, 2 were impeached by the House of Representatives but ultimately acquitted in the Senate. Andrew Johnson in 1868 and Bill Clinton in 1998. Richard Nixon resigned in 1974 to avoid certain impeachment by Congress over the Watergate scandal. Any federal official suspected of serious wrongdoing can be prosecuted by Congress under the impeachment process.
In other news, as Australia's catastrophic and deadly wildfire emergency continues, UN weather experts echoed government warnings for people to remain vigilant in the face of tinderbox conditions. Take a look. The World Meteorological Organization said that dozens of fires are raging in eastern New South Wales and southeast England or Queensland, amid reports that 3 people lost their lives in the fires of the weekend. In Geneva, spokesperson Claire Nulles said that conditions were likely to remain dry and windy with little or no rain forecast.
Apart from the immediate physical threat, and when authorities issue of a catastrophic fire danger, the message there is basically get out, get away. According to the Bureau of Meteorology of Australia, it's been the second warmest January to October on record for Australia as a whole, and these are records going back 110 years. The current fires are due to a combination of factors, including low soil moisture, heat, and importantly, wind direction and wind speed. The most extreme 10% of fire weather days, which is how they measure the fire index, has increased in recent decades across many regions of Australia, especially in southern and eastern Australia. There has been an associated increase in the length of the fire weather season, and climate change, including increasing temperatures, is contributing to these changes.
Although bush and grass fires are common in Australia, the emergency has coincided with increasingly warm temperatures over the course of the last century. According to the Bureau of Meteorology of Australia, January to October 2019 has been the second warmest period on record for 110 years. Between 1967 and 2013, Australian bushfires caused over 8,000 injuries and 433 deaths. Almost half of all fatalities from natural disasters, excluding heat waves, government figures showed. Over the same period, bushfires cost approximately $3.2 billion. Now, Australians began sifting through the ashes of hundreds of bushfires that have ravaged the country, relieved that their worst fears were unrealized, but worry of a long and brutal summer ahead. Firefighters were still battling around 140 blazes across the country's eastern seaboard, but a respite from catastrophic weather conditions meant the danger from many fires was downgraded. The northern state of Queensland remained on high alert, with residents on the north shore of popular holiday town Noosa told to leave immediately to avoid an unpredictable fire burning nearby. Underscoring the risks to residents and emergency responders, a firefighting helicopter crashed during water bombing operations in the state. The pilot survived with non-life-threatening injuries, according to a Queensland Ambulance Service spokesman. More than 300 new fires began in the state Tuesday, with 19 classified as emergencies. They spanned a distance of almost 1,000 kilometers from the outskirts of Sydney north toward Brisbane.
Fire truck, probably, and they fought it, and then the helicopters all came and doused it all with water and saved it all, got the paddies out. You can rebuild a house, but you can't build your life, create your life again. So we're lucky. Poor Devil's been killed and house is gone.
In other news, mainland Chinese students have begun fleeing Hong Kong campuses over security fears, police and university officials said, as the city's seething political crisis saw some of its worst violence this week. Take a look. The most intense clashes on Tuesday occurred at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, where pitched battles were fought with the police firing tear gas, water cannon, and rubber bullets, and protesters throwing petrol bombs and bricks, paralyzing the campus and the area around it. A group of mainland students at CUHK attempted to depart the campus Wednesday morning over safety concerns, but had to be shuttled away by a police boat because they were unable to leave via obstructed roads. The police decided to deploy a police launch to assist the group of students to go to a safe location, according to the force. Meanwhile, pro-democracy protesters on Wednesday stepped up a Blossom Everywhere campaign of roadblocks and vandalism across Hong Kong. Take a look. Now, this has crippled the international financial hub this week and ignited some of the worst violence in 5 months of unrest. The new phase in the crisis has forced schools and shopping malls to close, as well as the shutdown of large chunks of the vital train network. It also prompted police to warn on Tuesday the city was, quote, on the brink of total collapse. China, facing the biggest challenge to its rule of the territory since it was handed back by the British in 1997, has insisted it will not buckle to the pressure and warned of even tougher security measures. On Wednesday, commuters across many parts of the city woke to the increasingly familiar scenario of roads choked with bricks, bicycles, couches, and other materials that had been laid out by the protesters overnight to block traffic. Various lines on the subway, used by more than half of the city's 7.5 million people daily, were also suspended due to vandalism. It forced many workers to stay at home. Dozens of bus routes were also affected. Meanwhile, mass protesters dressed in their signature black were locked in a series of tense standoffs at university campuses following battles on Tuesday that continued through the night, with police firing tear gas and rubber bullets. The chaos was part of the largely anonymous protest movement's new strategy of Blossom Everywhere, in which small groups of people target as many parts of the city as possible to cause maximum disruption and stretch police resources. In the related news, in unprecedented scenes mirroring battlefields, flames lit up the sky and dense clouds of acrid smoke billow as police and protesters engage in violent clashes at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. The campus was the epicenter of demonstrations on Tuesday and raged well into the night. Let's take a look back. In other news, former Bolivian President Evo Morales arrived in Mexico after being granted asylum there. Take a look. A Mexican Air Force plane carrying the leftist leader touched down at the Mexico City International Airport, where Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard, who says Morales was the victim of a coup, warmly greeted him. Grinning, waving, and raising his fist in the air as he touched his heart, Morales thanked leftist President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, saying, quote, "He saved my life." He vowed his flight into exile would not be the end of the story.
Porque el presidente de México, gobierno del pueblo boliviano, me salvó la vida. Mientras tenga la vida, sigue la lucha y estamos seguros que los pueblos del mundo tienen todo el derecho de liberarse.
Morales, Bolivia's first indigenous president, defended his record bettering living conditions for poor and indigenous Bolivians and said there will only be peace when social justice is achieved for all. Morales led Bolivia for more than 13 years before mounting protests over his fraud-stained fourth re-election on October 20 forced him to resign. He was forced to step down after losing the backing of the military and police amid weeks of increasingly violent protests over his constitutionally questionable re-election. Meanwhile, a deputy speaker of the Senate proclaimed herself Bolivia's new interim president during a session of Congress that failed to reach a quorum. Lawmakers had been summoned to formalize Sunday's resignation of Evo Morales and confirm Jeanine Áñez, 52, as interim president to end a power vacuum.
Como presidenta de la Cámara de Senadores, asumo de inmediato la presidencia del Estado prevista en el orden constitucional y me comprometo a asumir todas las medidas necesarias para pacificar el país.
Áñez, a senator from the northeastern department of Beni, said there was a need to create a climate of social peace in the country. Carlos Mesa, the centrist candidate defeated by Morales in the tainted October 20 presidential elections, tweeted his congratulations after the session. Anez, second vice president of the Senate, is constitutionally next in line for the presidency after the vice president and leaders of both houses of Congress resigned along with Morales, leaving a power vacuum in the country. Morales, 68, resigned on Sunday after weeks of often violent protests following his contested October 20 re-election, which monitors from the Organization of American States said was riddled with irregularities. In other news, a suspected suicide bombing outside a police station in Indonesia has left at least one attacker dead and 6 other people wounded, according to authorities. The explosion happened around 8:45 a.m. local time at the compound in Medan on Sumatra Island during morning roll call. A national police spokesman said they suspect this is a suicide bombing with one attacker killed. He said at least 6 people were wounded, including 4 officers and 2 civilians, but that their injuries were not severe. The motive for the attack was not immediately known, but police stations have been frequent targets for radicals in the world's biggest Muslim-majority nation, which has long struggled with Islamist militancy. A man was shot dead south of Beirut after the army opened fire to disperse protesters blocking roads, according to Lebanese state media. Nearly a month into an unprecedented anti-graft street movement. Take a look. The victim succumbed to his injuries in hospital, according to the national news agency, the second death during the nationwide protests that have paralyzed the country. The army said in a statement that it had arrested a soldier after he opened fire in the coastal town of Calde, just below the capital, to clear protesters, injuring 1 person. Protesters have been demanding the ouster of a generation of politicians seen by demonstrators as inefficient and corrupt, in a movement that has been largely peaceful. On Tuesday night, street protests erupted after President Michel Aoun defended the role of his allies, the Shiite movement Hezbollah, in Lebanon's government. Protesters responded by cutting off several major roads in and around Beirut, the northern city of Tripoli, and the eastern region of Bekaa. Demonstrators say they are fed up with the same families dominating government institutions since the end of the 1975 and 1990 civil war. Going now to Chile, violent protests broke out in the capital Santiago as the country's currency dropped to a historic low after weeks of mass street demonstrations that have left the South American country in crisis. Clashes broke out between protesters demanding the resignation of President Sebastián Piñera and security forces close to the presidential palace. Some 80,000 people took to the street of Santiago as 100 organizations called a general strike. The demonstrators are demanding greater social reform from Piñera, who has announced several measures already in a bid to appease the protesters, including a pledge to change the constitution that dates from the 1973 to 1990 Augusto Pinochet dictatorship. Demonstrators congregated at the Plaza Italia Square, the epicenter of previous protests that have now lasted almost 4 weeks. They marched to the seat of the Workers' Union, the most powerful one in Chile, before moving on towards the presidential palace. Chile's currency dropped more than 3% to a record low of 784 pesos to the dollar. The peso actually dropped to 800 during the day, well beyond the previous record of 761 from October 10 of 2002, before recovering slightly at close. It had closed on Monday night at 760 to the dollar. The peso has been hit hard by the protests against the economic policies of right-wing leader President Piñera. It was trading at 709 to the dollar on October 18 when the protests erupted into violence. In other news, Venice was hit by the highest tide in more than 50 years. Tourists waded through flooded streets to seek shelter as a fierce wind whipped up waves in St. Mark's Square. Take a look.
È molto eccezionale, questa sera, proprio una cosa che nessuno si aspettava e probabilmente c'è.
Only once since records began in 1923 has the water crept even higher, reaching 1.94 meters in 1966. As emergency services took to the canals to survey the damage, Italian media reported that a 78-year-old local had been killed by electric shock as the waters poured into his home. The Coast Guard laid on extra boats to serve as water ambulances. St. Mark's Square is particularly affected by the high tides as it's located in one of the lowest parts of the city. Pierpaolo Campostrini, a member of St. Mark's Council, said the scale of the flooding on Tuesday had only been seen 5 times in the long history of the basilica, where construction began in 828 and which was rebuilt after a fire in 1063. Most worryingly, Campostrini said 3 of those 5 episodes occurred in the last 20 years, most recently in 2018. The Cultural Ministry, meanwhile, said it could help fund improvements to the basilica's flood defenses. Venice was not alone. Powerful rainstorms swept through Italy on Tuesday, hitting the south hard as well. The heavy rainfall closed schools in several southern cities, including Taranto, Brindisi, and Matera, as well as the Sicilian cities of Pozzallo and Noto, according to the National Weather Service. In Matera, this year's European Capital of Culture, a tornado caused trees and lampposts to fall, damaging numerous roofs and buildings. No injuries were reported. Disgraced Catholic Cardinal George Pell has been given a final avenue for appeal against his convictions for molesting 2 13-year-old choir boys in a Melbourne cathedral in the 1990s. In a brief procedural statement, Justice Michelle Gordon said Australia's High Court had granted the 78-year-old former Vatican treasurer special leave to appeal his convictions for child abuse. Currently serving a 6-year sentence, Pell is the most senior Catholic to go to jail amid the swath of child abuse cases against clergy around the world. Gordon said the case would be referred to a full court of this court for argument. No date was set for the appeal hearing, but it's not expected before 2020. Pell had lost a previous attempt to overturn the convictions in Victoria State's Court of Appeal in August, but that landmark decision saw the judges split in a 2-1 victory. 2 of the judges said the sole surviving victim, a former choir boy now in his 30s, was very compelling in his evidence and someone who was a witness of truth. The 3rd judge, however, found the victim's account contaminated, or rather contained discrepancies, and there was a significant possibility Pell did not commit the offenses. Pell, who once helped elect popes, was found guilty of abusing the 2 boys after catching them swigging from a bottle of sacramental wine in the sacristy following Catholic Sunday Mass.
Support people be impossible.
To the deadly Ebola virus now, and news that for the first time, European regulators have approved a vaccine to protect more people from outbreaks like the one happening in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The World Health Organization has welcomed the development, calling it a landmark moment for global health. It's already using the vaccine on a special trial basis in eastern DRC, where the latest Ebola epidemic has claimed nearly 2,200 lives since last August. Here's WHO spokesperson Christian Lindmeier.
The European Commission, as you just pointed out, the European Commission approval yesterday to license the vaccine is a landmark moment for global health. It's the first time an Ebola vaccine has been licensed anywhere in the world. So the next step is WHO pre-qualification, expected within days. Pre-qualification means that WHO is satisfied with the vaccine's quality, safety and efficacy data and helps speed up licensing, access and rollout in countries where it is needed most. So licensing and pre-qualification will eventually make the vaccine more widely available to protect people who are at the risk of contracting Ebola virus. But licensing always has to be done in every country according to the national laws. In the near term, there will not be a change to the quantity of vaccine available or how it is used in DRC. licensed doses will only be available in mid-2020. WHO played a major role in bringing a candidate Ebola vaccine to this point, from our support to research on Ebola vaccines to leading the trial where it was first tested in 2015 to supporting African regulators to move forward with their approval process. So maybe a point on what's next. So this pre-qualification is expected in the next few days. WHO developed a roadmap aiming to accelerate pre-qualification and coordinate actions and contributions to the licensing and rollout in high-risk countries in Africa.
The vaccine protects
I think it
against...
changes the situation globally. So the use of the vaccine as it's now is supposed to be a pre-qualified vaccine as of soon makes it available all over the world according to the national regulations and standards, of course, in any country which may need this vaccine in the future, and it should speed up use and licensing and qualification in any country which may need it much faster, and that is of importance, because if you remember the discussions of introducing the vaccine as a test vaccine beforehand, this was a lengthy process, and now any use in the future can be sped up by can be done much faster, and hence this is a huge achievement. Therefore, this is one of the big reasons why a WHO pre-qualification is so important, that any national authorities who need can get ahead with licensing fast and quickly and efficiently.
The vaccine protects against Ebola virus disease caused by the Zaire species of the virus, which is the cause of the most Ebola outbreaks, including the current DRC outbreak and the West African epidemic. It's also up for FDA approval in the United States, with a decision expected by mid-March. Licensed doses of the vaccine will be available in mid-2020, according to Mr. Lindmeier. He also noted that although the weekly number of Ebola cases has leveled off recently, the risk of it returning to former infection hotspots remains high, with access to these communities essential if the outbreak is to be eradicated. In Florida, our ABC correspondent Melissa Potes is at an Aid to Humanity event in Orlando. Melissa?
Paramore, a neighborhood rich in African-American history, is located in West Central Orlando, Florida.
It's a wonderful, vibrant community, and it has a lot of history for the Orlando area and for the city of Orlando.
Despite its rich history, it is also known for being extremely disadvantaged. According to the Paramore Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan, 1 in 4 residents is unemployed, with a 23.8% unemployment rate. The median average income is approximately $15,500, 3 times below the entire city of Orlando.
It's really hard because this is like the low class and the homeless, so it's really, really hard. And it's especially hard to be on your feet and everything as well. So for somebody or organization or anybody to actually help is very helpful.
Going up on the rent and stuff, putting people going up, the rent's so high, people can't afford them, they're moving out. A lot of the older people, they're really moving out and losing their home and stuff, and that's not fair. It's not fair at all, you know.
Given the situation of the residents of Paramore, the FYM Foundation brought its Aid to Humanity community outreach program to the Callahan Neighborhood Center.
A non-stock, a non-profit, and a non-political organization. Its true mission is to provide opportunity and equity for individuals in different communities, to promote education, to ensure socio-economic well-being, and to promote environmental awareness and health improvement for everyone. The Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, or the FYM Foundation, continues to create a peaceful and productive community effort.
We chose Paramore because, as you can see, many of our fellow men in this place really in dire need of help. Today we will be distributing 2,000 Goodwill bags along with 2,000 meal packs.
The program provided free health screenings, gently used clothing, live entertainment, and culminated with the distribution of care packages and meal packs. Individuals shared their thoughts on the importance of organizations and leaders giving back.
Mayor Dyer believes very firmly in the power of partnerships and collaborations, and this is a wonderful example of how our community is compassionate and caring and serving their neighbors and members of their community.
It makes me feel great that someone cares enough for the community to come out to give a helping hand on the community. It lets me know that they appreciate the community and they care about the community.
Thank you so very much. Because Lord knows me and my family, we did need the supplies and we did need the food.
Makes me feel good. I mean, you know, when you're out on the streets, a lot of times you get to think too many negative thoughts. So when something positive like this happens, it makes a difference.
It means a lot to us. Well, you know, nobody, ever say it, but it means a lot to us, A lot of people really don't have anything to eat, And when you guys come, it's a feeling here and here.
Events like this Aid to Humanity provide a positive example of how community leaders and organizations can collaborate to benefit the people and families they serve. Reporting to you from the Callahan Neighborhood Center in Orlando, Florida, I'm Melissa Potas, always one with 25.
Thank you, Melissa. Eagle News, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
MTRCB ang mag-provide na appropriate rate.
Micro, small and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Come on in. That is what President Donald Trump jokingly told the world's dictators, saying he's happy to deal with any kind of foreign leader able to help the U.S. The president was touting the strength of the U.S. economy in a speech to business executives in New York and said the rest of the world wants to get its share. Take a look.
But they're all coming back to the United States. They want to be where the action is. Very simple. They want to be where the action is. This is where the action is. There's nobody close. There's no country close. When I meet with the leaders of countries as they come in, kings and queens and prime ministers and presidents and dictators, I meet them all. Anybody wants to come in. Dictators, it's okay. Come on in. Whatever's good for the United States. We want to help our people, for instance. But central to this comeback is a series of bold initiatives to reform a broken system of international trade. We want thriving commerce with as many countries as possible, but trade must be fair, and to me it must be my favorite word, reciprocal.
His words were a jab at his critics who have accused him of meeting with dictators like North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un, China's President Xi Jinping, and Russia's President Vladimir Putin. President Trump spent more than an hour on stage. He was praising the success of the U.S. economy under his rule, including low unemployment, growing wages, and high consumer confidence. Now, President Trump launched his trade battle with China last year, accusing Beijing of trying to dominate industries across the globe through subsidies, theft of intellectual property, and other practices. Companies were relieved when President Trump last month announced a substantial Phase 1 deal with Beijing, but details have been scarce and there's no word on when the agreement will be signed. President Trump on Tuesday slammed China as cheaters, but he also said a trade deal with the country could be close. Let's listen in.
No one has manipulated numbers better or taken advantage of the United States more. And I won't use this word cheated. I will not say the word cheated. But nobody's cheated better than China, but I will not say that. We'll say that off the record, okay? And they are dying to make a deal. We're the ones that are deciding whether or not we want to make a deal. We're close. A significant Phase 1 trade deal with China could happen. Could happen soon. But we will only accept a deal if it's good for the United States and our workers and our great companies, because
The Aid to Humanity program of the Iglesia Ni Cristo is being conducted in different parts of the world. We have a report coming in from Lorlyn Kalimlim. Lorlyn?
Right now, we are here at the Philippine Embassy, Manama Kingdom of Bahrain, for the Aid to Humanity program of the members of the Church of Christ. Driven by the advocacy of the members of the Church of Christ, or the Iglesia Ni Cristo, here in the Kingdom of Bahrain, distressed fellow Filipino workers who are sheltered in the Migrant Workers Center have been aided with hygienic and feminine products. And with the help of His Excellency, the Philippine Ambassador to the Kingdom, Alfonso A. Ver, the said activity is made possible.
Sa una po sa lahat, nagpapasalamat po ako sa Panginoon Diyos at pagtulong po ng Iglesia Ni Cristo. Nagpapasalamat din po ako sa mga biyaya pong binibigay nila ngayon sa amin. Ngayon po, nagpapasalamat din po ako sa ating embahada na tumutulong po sa amin at nag-aayos ng aming mga papel para po makauwi po kami sa aming bansa. At maiuwi ko rin po yung aking anak. Maraming salamat po sa tulong po nila.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you once again sa inyong pagtulong sa aming mga wards dito sa embassy, no, at maraming salamat sa continuous na pagtulong nyo, no, na lagi kayong handa, lagi kayo nagpunta dito at kami naman nagiging tulay para maibahagi itong mga tulong nyo sa mga nangangailangan dito sa wards, no. Dahil sa pag-ugnayan namin at yung mga ahensya ng gobyerno dito, sa mga employer, pati na sa mga agency na mabilis naming nareglo, no? Pero kung may mangyari man, meron din habang para tumulong sa inyo. Hindi lang mga embassy, kasama namin mga iba-ibang grupo, iba-ibang mga organisasyon gaya nyo, no? So, papasalamat ulit ako sa inyo. Hindi namin magagawa ang pag-aruga at pag-alaga sa aming mga nangangailangan dito kung wala rin mga tulong nyo, no? So, mabuhay ko tayong lahat at maraming salamat ulit.
Ang OWA po ay ang tulong na ibinibigay sa ating mga OFWs dito. Siyempre po, unang-una, resolusyon sa kanilang mga kaso. Paano natin sila mapapauwi? Kung pagpapauwi ang gusto nila, kung umuwi sa Pilipinas, o kung hindi naman po, yung mapalipat sila sa panibagong sponsor. Kung gugustuhin pa nilang magtrabaho dito. Meron din po tayo dito yung pag-stay nila dito sa shelter natin. Ang binibigyan po natin sila ng mga trainings, mga pagsasanay, mga kagaya po ng structured learning exercises, values reorientation, financial literacy. Nang sa gayon naman po, hindi rin masayang yung pag-stay nila dito sa shelter. Meron po tayong ginagawa para sa kanila. At the same time, matutulungan nating mabuo yung kanilang pagkatao kahit na may mga masamang nangyari sa kanila. Magpapasalamat kami sa Iglesia Ni Cristo sa isa na namang pagtulong na ginawa. No? Alam ko po, hindi lang ito ang ginagawa ng Iglesia Ni Cristo sa ating mga OFWs dito. Marami pa pong ibang mga programa ang Iglesia Ni Cristo. Pero syempre, dahil distressed workers ang mga ito, na ipakita ng Iglesia ni Cristo na nabigyan ng importansya ang ating mga kababayan at ito pong pagpunta ninyo, napasaya natin sila. Sana po patuloy itong maging programa ng Iglesia ni Cristo para makatulong sa kanila. Hindi lang po itong mga OFWs na kasalukuyang nandito sa ating embahada ngayon, sa mga susunod pa. Maraming salamat po.
Sa pangalan po ng Iglesia ni Cristo, kami ay nagpapasalamat una sa Diyos at ang ating tagapamahalang pangkalahatan sapagkat may ganitong programa na Aid for Humanity na kung saan ay naisagawa ngayong araw na ito dito sa Philippine Embassy sa mga kababayan nating mga distress OFW. So, salamat sa Panginoon Diyos, ibinabalik po namin lahat ng kapurihan sa Kanya. Sana po ay patuloy pang susuporta yung ating mga kapatid sa ganitong pakikipagkaisa sa programa ng ating tagapamahalang pagkalahatan na mahalin natin yung ating kapwa sapagkat yan ay pagmamahal natin sa Diyos.
Whenever you possibly can, do good to those who mostly need it. In times of crisis, reach out. Independent social organizations like the Iglesia ni Cristo, with the help of the representatives from the Philippine Embassy, are there to help you. Reporting from Manama, Bahrain, Lorlin Kalimlim, your Eagle News correspondent, and I'm Juan with 25.
Artificial intelligence is changing how companies conduct their everyday business, making normal day operations run more smoothly. How can AI help advance the SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals? Can AI save lives on our roads? The SDG Media Zone broadcasted live from the Web Summit in Lisbon, Portugal. Let's listen in.
First of all, let's talk some facts. Yeah? Between 20 and 50 million people, they get hurt on the roads a year, and 1.25 deaths. Most of these injuries, most of these deaths are caused by human error. And motorsport is a laboratory for all the technologies which will make the car faster in a way, but also safer. So the next big thing in safety will be autonomous driving. You take the human element out. There will be no more drunk driving because there will be no more driving in the future. So what we're doing with RoboRace is exactly that. We want to have to use the racetrack as a laboratory. We don't want to replace the human driver in racing. We want to create a different path in which creates a laboratory for autonomous to improve these technologies fast. So we hope in the future that we can make the roads much safer.
So there's a sense of urgency behind the Global Summit and all the participants that are looking at the solutions that exist today. What can we do today? And the summit is really designed to generate AI for good projects on the spot. And some examples of these, like practical hands-on projects. So the 2018 summit created a collaboration with the World Health Organization to develop an evaluation and benchmarking framework for the testing of AI for health algorithms. So for example, there's if you develop a new drug, you have to spend $10 billion, put it through the FDA, maybe 10 years later, it's approved, right? But you have lots of useful AI for health applications where to detect maybe skin cancer with your phone or diabetes or what have you. And these are going up on the iTunes store daily with no kind of oversight or any idea if it's good or bad. So we've developed a benchmarking framework to basically evaluate the efficacy of these algorithms. And I would say the next big project that came out of the summit was thanks to RoboRace and Brin. They came to the summit this year, and there was a call from the participants from industry for safety and performance standards to basically create the equivalent of a driving license for autonomous vehicles, if you will.
I think, as I said at the beginning, we're really focused on the new technology that's happening in automotive and how to bring that technology to the public.
Yeah.
The best way to engage the public in the debate around technology is to have an entertaining sport, something that they can watch and enjoy, and then you can communicate to them about the messaging in the background.
Right.
Yeah, Formula E is exciting because it's actually motorsport, but it has a very key sustainability message behind.
Right.
It's been very similar with RoboRace, what we're looking to develop. So. And I think the work that we've done with the ITU over the last 2 years has been incredible. So the UN providing this AI for Good forum, You know, I don't know where AI for evil is, but we're certainly on the AI for good side.
Right.
You know, now we're looking to announce here a focus group for AI for assisted and automated driving. So that initiative has really come from our perspective in motorsport. You know, how do we regulate the technology, but also regulate the drivers and driver behaviour?
Yeah.
And then how do we take that driver behaviour monitoring that we've looked at and apply that to the roads so that we can ensure that the AI on the road is always safe, it's always driving in the correct manner.
Yeah. So the automotive industry will suffer with less cars being sold, with this no ownership or less ownership of mobility, use mobility as a service like Uber, like all these apps, or even the electric scooters and bikes that you see around. So actually we democratize personal mobility in a way that will give access to poorer people to much better mobility in general. So the implications are huge. What we're doing is just the tip of the iceberg, but the ramifications are huge.
In other news, Disney flung open its vast archive with the arrival of its much-hyped new television streaming service on Tuesday. But the big launch was marred by glitches, and that prevented many customers accessing titles from Mickey Mouse cartoons to Star Wars. Now, it went live overnight on televisions, tablets, and smartphones across the U.S. and Canada, featuring thousands of movies and TV episodes from Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and National Geographic. Disney chief Bob Iger called the launch a historic moment for our company that marks a new era of innovation and creativity. But after a series of posts on social media from users unable to watch, Disney acknowledged problems with the rollout, saying it was due to strong demand. It said the consumer demand for Disney Plus has exceeded our high expectations, according to the company in a statement. They added, "We are pleased by this incredible response and are working to quickly resolve the current user issue, and we appreciate your patience." The real-time web monitoring service, Down Detector, reported at least 8,000 problems accessing Disney Plus by 1400 GMT. Dozens of Twitter users posted messages about the glitches, some using images of the Disney film Ralph Breaks the Internet or the hashtag Disney Plus fail. Others complained of long wait times trying to contact technical support. The introduction of Disney Plus marks a huge bet by the media entertainment giant, pitching it into direct conflict with on-demand services such as Netflix and Amazon Prime, which have disrupted the Hollywood media landscape. Pascal Siakam had 23 points and 13 rebounds. Kyle Lowry scored 24 points and Toronto beat Sacramento. Serge Ibaka scored 10 of his 21 points in the fourth quarter. And OG Anunoby had a season-high 18 for defending champion Toronto. Here's Adrian Panganiban for more.
The defending champions enter Wednesday night's contest as the fifth best team in the Eastern Conference. With a 4-2 record, the fans are proud of the team's valiant efforts. They nearly overcame a 26-point deficit before falling short to the Milwaukee Bucks. They look to get back on the winning track as they take on a young and talented Sacramento Kings squad at home, where they remain undefeated.
The Raptors improved their record by overpowering the Kings with a balanced contribution from key players. Pascal Siakam scored 23 points along with 13 rebounds. Kyle Lowry had 24 points, and Serge Ibaka chipped in with 21 points off the bench. Nick Nurse commented on his team's play.
But I thought everybody was into what we call next action basketball tonight. When it didn't look good, boom, it was to mark and to the other side and to the next screen and roll, and that didn't look good, boom, it was to the other side, and that's a little bit more like it for us offensively.
With the continued contributions of the young players on the roster, the team is poised to make another run to the playoffs. It will be interesting to see just how far this roster can go as the season plays out. They'll face another great test now that they head out west against some familiar foes.
This will be no easy task for the reigning NBA champions before they head out west for their 5-game road trip. They look to take on the Pelicans, Lakers, Clippers, Trailblazers before ending off in Dallas to face the Mavericks. Last season, the team won 22 out of 30 contests against Western Conference opponents, and it will take a tremendous effort to top that record. For more NBA coverage, tune in to EBCSI for more stories and highlights around the sports world. From Scotiabank Arena, I'm Adrian Pangilinan, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Adrian, and that's the news for tonight. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Always 1 with 25. Good night.